Well, after Commonwealth set, the show continues on with a very promising but somewhat worrisome episode that really makes me interested in where the rest of the show is going to go. Hey guys, coming over for Luke Cage, Season 1, Episode 8, Blowing Up the Spots, and I was definitely looking forward to this episode, but at the same time, I really didn't know where we were going to go after what happened in Episode 7. I mean, you killed off potentially the most compelling character of the entire show, and I was hoping that they had something up their sleeve. Of course, with introducing Diamondback, it seemed like the show really was in full force, and I'm not going to lie, while I really did enjoy this episode overall, this episode was quite disappointing. I mean, they introduce a character like Diamondback, but this is the character we end up getting. In general, I don't really know where the show is headed from here. I've heard that the show gets really bad in the second half, and I can already tell where it's going to go. This episode was much more over the top than the first few episodes, and it definitely does show here, and not in the way that the other episodes have been. Definitely makes me worried for where the rest of the show is going to go, but let's just get into this episode because I do want to talk about it overall. This wasn't a bad episode, it just definitely made me worried about where we're going to go, but there were definitely some good things about it. Starting off the beginning, I really did love the first scene in this episode. We start off right where the last episode left off. You know, Luke shot Claire. She goes to him, begs him to stay with her. He winces in pain. She tells him not to. He groans louder. She tells him not to move. She gets him into an ambulance, and which is then followed by the guy who shot him. Luke comes to and asks Claire where he is. She explains how he's in an ambulance and went into shock, and she says she called her friend Manny, who used to run with her uncle back in the day. He's driving and assures for him that he'll be very discreet about it. He asks what she did that for. She asks what he means. He says no hospitals since he can't be in the system, and she says he borrowed it and tells him that him getting shot and bleeding will garner him even more media attention, and that this is really just hurting him in general. You know, he wants to be a very private person, but this is hurting him, and as we know, Claire wants him to be a hero. You know, she said that to him. I want you to be a hero. I want you to save people. She gives him something to drink and says she saw him looking for the shooter before he passed out. Asks if he got a look at who it was. He says he didn't. She asks him how much pain he's in on a scale of from 1 to 10. He says no more than 3. She says he's lying. He says he's fine, and she says the bullet penetrated through his skin, which she didn't even think could happen, and he says that makes the two of them. Tells her it's still in there. She says the sound that made it look like it was drilling into him. She wants to get a closer look, see what's going on inside of him. She says she knows a place. He says to do whatever it is that she has to do. They continue to drive, but just then the shooter knocks the ambulance over with a rocket launcher. Luke asks her if she's okay. She says she is. Manny asks who that was. She asks if he's okay. He says he'll be fine, but if someone took a shot at them, they both have to get out of there. Tells him to go on without him. They get out of the ambulance, and Claire hides behind a car while we see the shooter. He's shouting quotes from the Warriors, and right off the bat, this character seemed very, very cartoony. I mean, right off the bat, I'm like, there's just something off about him. He's saying Carl, he's calling him Carl, so it's now clear they have some sort of past together. He's saying, Carl, come out and play. Just in general, something felt very off, but it still was okay. I was like, alright, I'm in this. Maybe this will be a little cheesy, but maybe this will just be someone who's not that big of a deal. And the shooter says he's enjoying the shit, tells him to keep running. He gets up, and she tells him he can't fight him yet. He's too weak. They try to get away from the unknown shooter, and Mariah, and I thought overall this was a good start. Definitely one of the better parts of this episode. Now, by far, the best stuff in this episode involves Mariah and Shades. All of this stuff is extremely compelling, and I love where this is going. I just wish the rest of the episode would have been this good, because all the stuff going on with them is fantastic. Alfre, Woodard, and whoever plays Shades, can't think of his name right now, they both were fantastic in this episode, and I love where all their stuff is headed. But Mariah's at Harlem's Paradise. She has her murdering Conmouth in her head on repeat. I mean, she just can't stop seeing it. Everything she sees, everything she looks, reminds her of Conmouth's death. You can tell she's very much regretful of it, and Shades goes to her, asks if she's having second thoughts, asks her what's on her mind. She says she's not having any thoughts, and asks him if that's normal, which of course we know she is. He says as long as she stays on the clock, it doesn't matter. The secret to every great lie is that it has to run parallel to the truth, and every moment wasted brings her one step closer to jail, and she asks what they should do. He says DNA is their friend and their enemy, and they must tread carefully, head straight to the bathroom, clean up, and she says she doesn't have any clothes. He says to grab some from Alex and tells her that they'll need a patsy. While all this is happening, we see Misty, who is discovering Conmouth's body, and a very well done scene, may I say. The way this was done done with intercutting between Misty discovering Conmouth's body and Shades and Mariah planning on how they're going to cover this up. Shades asks Mariah if she forgot anything. She says the bottle, she hit him in the head with it, and he asks if it broke. She says it didn't. He says that's good. Misty tells everyone to make sure they photograph the stage, compare the depth of the last performance film there, and see if anything is missing. And this is by far one of Misty's craziest episodes. Like, Misty in general has been so far very calculated and I think very slow with her stuff, but this is the episode where her stuff really gets moving, and you definitely see that. But she takes a look at it and she says the fall couldn't have done all the damage, it's not enough height, and she figured someone had to hit him with something over and over again till he's dead. Shades then gives Mariah a trash bag, tells her to put the clothes she's wearing into it. Every stitch goes in. Spurlock will incinerate them and tells her to get dressed from the clothes because obviously there's blood on them. And in the garment bag, she says she looks like she's in shock and asks if that's why he's speaking to her as if she was a child. He tells her that he wants her to win, do what he says, and once she gets away with this, she can go back to being the sexy, dominating bitch that they all hate to love. She puts the clothes in the trash bag, says this is the last time he will ever call her a bitch, tells her look at what she did. Just, Mariah is such a badass in general. I love the way she's like, this is the last time he'll call me a bitch, and I love that she still has the upper hand, even though he's the one reprimanding her. I love that. Misty then looks at the body, says destroying the face is rage, and we flash back to Shades doing just that to cover up the evidence, literally destroying like Conmouth's face. And Misty says walking away without leaving a trail of blood, no one's ever done, and Shades plans on blaming it on Luke, we see. So Misty and this really, I think, sets up where the rest of the season's going to go, how they're going to cover up this death. Very quickly, they do a good job with that, and like I said, all the best stuff involves Mariah and Shades. All their stuff I think is great. I just wish the rest of the episode was as good. So Misty then meets with Mariah, who she's surprised to see doesn't really seem to be taking this nearly that bad, and it's mainly because she already knows the plan that they have, and lets her know that they are working as fast as they can. I will say, Mariah's doing a pretty good job of covering up that she's the one that killed Conmouth, definitely. I didn't think she would, but she's doing a pretty good job at having a poker face, and they said that she called them in, and Mariah comes up with a fake story that she called Conmouth around noon so they could talk. He said he was busy and would get back to her, so she went into work, but didn't hear from him for a while, so basically, so she came back there. Misty asked if she was mad. Mariah says it was more like frustrated, not mad. He was her first cousin, and she practically raised him and loved him like a brother. And all that backstory we got at Conmouth makes us care about this relationship much more than we already did, and I really love that. But Misty asked if when she got there was the door locked. Mariah says that there is a code on the VIP entrance that keeps the paparazzi away, and it changes every week, and she had access, and Misty asked what she did next. Mariah says she then found sprawled out like a rag doll, and Misty asked if he was already dead when she got there. Mariah says that he was, but then she heard someone else cry. Candace Miller, aka Conmouth's VIP hostess, and has worked at Harlem's Paradise, reopened. So Misty goes to Candace and introduces herself and asks her what she saw. Candace says she doesn't need time. She saw who did it, that being Luke, and basically that's, they plan on framing him. So Mariah comes out, gives a press conference, says Conmouth was a complex man, conflicted, but underneath all the bluster was the soul of a musician and was a true Harlem original. Tries to pin the blame on Luke further. While all this goes down, Shades plants some evidence, doing whatever he can to try to make it seem like it was Luke, and their plan is absurd, but it kind of makes sense where they're going with this. I mean, it makes sense why they would target Luke. Luke is someone who was intent on going after Conmouth, and it kind of makes sense why he would do this. So Claire gets Luke to a woman's clinic. She says the shooter is putting innocent people in danger to get at him. He says he's going to put a stop to it, but he needs her help. He tells her hold on to a necklace. She puts rubbing alcohol on it, but he stops her since he can't be compromised with drugs. Innocent people could die, and he can't risk it. She starts digging into the wound to extract the bullet, but it turns out the invulnerable skin actually goes a bit further down than they thought, so he's pretty much screwed with no way to get the bullet out, we see, which was honestly a pretty well done twist. I like the way that was done. But Misty then starts to interrogate Candace, and Misty informs her the quicker she answers her questions, the quicker she'll be able to go. She asks for simple information at first and basic questions, then asks about the shower and the private bathroom being used. Candace admits she did use it after meeting with Conmouth, and Misty asks if she's one of his friends. Candace says yes. Misty says that she would assume that she has his code for his private entrance. Candace asks what she means, but then she's hampered by another rival from Donovan, who decides to represent her now. This was Cottonmouth's lawyer. He's now Candace's lawyer. So Donovan tells Misty she's not under arrest. Candace says she's not guilty, and she doesn't get what else she wants to know. Misty says they used luminol and found traces of blood in Cottonmouth's shower, even though it had been heavily bleached. Donovan tells her to stand up and walk out. Misty says it's a good thing she has him as her high-powered flunky. So she's about to nail her ass to the wall, and Candace again pins it all on Luke and says after she showered, she came out to see Cottonmouth. She still needed her paycheck. She heard loud voices in a struggle, and that's when she walked out and saw Cottonmouth in a struggle on the floor. Luke saw her and run away. He was wearing bright yellow gloves, and Misty asked if she sure was him. Candace says she would know since she saw him together the other night, and Candace asked to leave. Misty says to look her in the eye and asked her if she was too scared to go upstairs and serve Cottonmouth without Luke table number 7, and then she started sleeping with him, but she still calls him Mr. Stokes, which again is very strange. You know, if she had these relations with Cottonmouth, why does she refer to him as Mr. Stokes? It just feels very weird. She can't even tell about his private interests and ask what they have on her. I mean, Misty does not believe this for a second, and I really did like that. They showed pretty well that Misty is smart overall, and I really did like that. So then we get a great scene where Mariah is at work and Alex watches back the video, assures her she killed it. She says to send the link to all her supporters and donors if they play this right. Misty goes to her and applauds her since she can tell she's playing it up. Like, she knows that all of this was a fabricated lie. I mean, Misty, again, she's not stupid. She knows what she's doing. Mariah tells Alex to wait in the car. Mariah asks her if she has a problem. And I love how these two are pretty much on the same page. They just have very different agendas, and you really do see that. Misty says she just calls it like she sees them. Mariah says she now has her suspect. Misty says that no one ever says that there's not more than one. Says her cousin was attacked by somebody he was close to, and that's what these wounds tell her if it was passion and hatred. Mariah says he showed up at her brownstone trying to intimidate her, which shows his hatred. Misty asks what she has on Candace, and Mariah asks what she has on her. Misty says other than the face that her edges are a little damp, and Mariah says she doesn't have shit on her, she's not under arrest, and if she wants to talk to her, to call her lawyer and ask who her partner is. Says who the hell does she think she's talking to? Ridley calls her in. We realize that Mariah actually knows from college and actually gives her condolences, and I love how outnumbered Misty is in this scene. I mean, it shows that while Misty is very smart, she's also very vulnerable, and that vulnerability really does play into her here. And Misty says that she hugged her, and Ridley says she's their sorority sister. She has to, and she asks if she likes Mariah for this. Misty says she does. Ridley says she has an eyewitness, and Misty says it is one she can't trust. Says the evidence points to two suspects. One of them was someone who Cottonmouth was close to because they got to gangster number 1 without catching a bullet, which obviously, if they were loyal to him, then he would have killed them if they weren't loyal to him. So Ridley says that Mariah called them. Misty says then she called the press and she put Luke on blast. She was just about to compel her to make a statement before she let her leave. Ridley asks where Luke is because Mariah isn't going anywhere, but her number 1 suspect is Ghost, and asks what she's going to do about it. So again, really good stuff there. Claire continues to try to find the bullet, does an ultrasound. The bullet exploded in Luke's gut, and now it's just shrapnel, and the pieces left her trapped, and he asks how much. She said it's a lot, and they're moving. He asks if she can scalpel it, and asks how she's going to take the bullet out. She asks if he remembers when Jessica shot him. Kind of a nice, subtle reference there. I like that. He says he's been trying to forget that, and she says she drained the fluid in his skull by going behind the eye socket, and she'll figure it out. He gets a call from someone 3 times, and she answers it, and it's actually Misty, who calls with the news of Cottonmouth's death. She needs him to come down to answer some questions. He asks if she thinks he did it, and she says the witness puts him at the scene. Claire says this has to be a joke. Misty tells her stay out of it. Claire says that he's been with her all night and hasn't called anyone. Now, Misty says that she has crime scenes coming up through the apartment, and stairs just make it easier on himself, and he tells her to hang up since they're trying to trace the call. She hangs up, and it's too late. She's already traced the call and insists on going out by herself despite her colleague advising her not to. And like I said, Misty's smart. She doesn't exactly make the most rash decisions, but she is a good cop overall, and that's something that Misty is trying to do. She's trying to be a good cop, someone who has the right facts, someone who has the right information, and overall is just someone who really knows her shit. This isn't someone who's stupid. You know, she wants to be the person to really turn Harlem around, and you really do see that, but Misty isn't really the one to do it, and that's one of the reasons why Misty is so outnumbered in this episode and in the show in general so far. So I love this. Again, the dude who plays Shades absolutely killed it in this episode. And I'm not going to say he was bad in the first 7 episodes, but now the Conmouth is gone, they're really giving Shades a lot more screen time. They're giving a lot more to do, and I'm just really loving what I'm getting from him. They did a really good job of not making him Juice 2.0, and I really like that. Basically, Shades says that he thought that they went back down south. Zip says that there's nothing down there for him. He's back, and Shades asks what they want, because remember, they were going to leave because Conmouth was in jail, but since Conmouth is gone, he sent them away, and shit don't change, so they need to work some kind of deal. Shades informs Zip and his crew that they work for him now, and he doesn't want them anywhere around Luke. One of the smartest things that he's done so far. He doesn't want anything to do with Luke, so I like the way that was done. The cops then find gloves covered with blood in the trash at Pops, because after being smarter to get close to Conmouth and kill him, apparently Luke would be that sloppy with the evidence, which obviously isn't really the way it's going to go. I mean, it just doesn't really make a sense, but we then get this really weird scene where Claire appears to be able to work at blood on a cellular level with a regular pair of tweezers, and the same thing that makes them so strong is the same thing that's causing the shrapnel to go deeper. But Missy then arrives to arrest Luke. She asks about the gunshot wound. She asks who shot him. He says he never saw him. Claire explains where they were, how it happened. Misty says that their alibi. She makes a call to Bailey, says he's under arrest, but that's when the shooter turns up again. Claire tells him to get down, and let me just tell you guys that after this scene, this is when the episode really started disappointing me. Everything from here on out I found got way too over the top and very, very not subtle. And that's something the show has done very well. It's been a very subtle show. It's been a very realistic show. And if the show wants to continue to be realistic, a lot of the stuff in this last 20 minutes really did not make a ton of sense, really. So Misty goes in the scene, says when they get through this, she's still arresting him. The shooter comes through the window. Luke recognizes him during the fight, but has to back off. When he takes, and you know that obviously they have a connection, so he takes Misty hostage, says they need to spend some time together. The shooter then takes her there, says he's seen Luke's taste in women. He haven't changed. He likes frizzy hair and a tight frame. She asks who Carl is, and he explains to her who he is. He then quotes the Bible, points a gun near her. I really was not liking this character, but again, I didn't think he was going to be a huge part of this. He asks if she, is going to beg even a little bit, and she says if he's going to shoot her, then go ahead and do it. Luke gets back up, tells Claire he has to go after him, says this is his cross to bear, no one else can do this, and the shooter then points the gun right at her temple. He says she's slowing him down. He says he'll hurt her later, she'll suffer more that way. Luke calls out his last name, Stryker, and Stryker goes to him. Claire runs up, so now we know his last name is Stryker. We don't know who else he is, but Claire runs up, tells him to go and end this. He confronts Stryker. He goes into a building, calls it his name. Stryker says he left him to rot, and Luke says they can work this out. Stryker asks what they can work out. His life, his mother destroying himself, being away for so long, there's nothing left to work out. He did not come to bring peace but a sword. Talks about a preacher that used to speak to them. He says all the world's a stage for a preacher's son. He was a quarterback, and no matter how many passes he threw, he was all about running the ball because he wanted the game in his hands. Luke finally gets to him. Luke calls him Willis, and Stryker says he prefers Diamondbacks. So yes, this guy who quotes the Bible, who says Warriors quotes, and who has done pretty much nothing but just gone on tangents and try to chase Luke, is apparently the almighty powerful Diamondback that we've heard of for the past 8 episodes. Can you guys understand why I was a little bit disappointed? I mean, this guy's not bad. He's really not. But to get rid of Conmouth and bring in this guy is a complete step backwards, in my opinion. There's nothing subtle about this guy. There's nothing compelling about him. And anything they could have done with him is completely salvaged towards the end of this episode, which I definitely want to get into. So, Diamondback says he's shed his skin for something better and stronger. He left him to rot in a gutter, but he changed that sewer into a garden. Luke admits he wasn't a good friend. He should have stood tall, but he didn't, and he paid the price. Diamondback says he's been watching him, and Harlem doesn't realize they're worshiping a false idol. Now, this I found to be very interesting. The fact that Diamondback feels that he's not this almighty, powerful god that everyone sees him as. He doesn't understand why Luke is so liked by everyone. He thinks that it's false. He thinks that there's nothing there. He's the golden cat, but he's got commandments for him. He's going to bring the pain, Reva's death, the crimes he went to jail for, the torture he endured, and once he's inside, it was all him. Of course, not Reva's death, since we know very well, obviously, who is guilty for that. He just likes saying her name to watch him squirm. Again, very cheesy line. I really was not intimidated by him. Luke says he ruined his life. Diamondback says he gave him wings, and he came back with superpowers. Ain't that a bitch? He pulls the trigger, and while Luke is severely hampered by his bullet wound, he still manages to throw Stryker hard into a pillar. Really well done scene. I like the way that he was able to take Diamondback out. Misty then has Claire in the interrogation room and really goes to her, says that Cooper went at her for about an hour. She didn't say anything they need in terms of finding Luke or her attacker. And let me say, I really did like both Rosario Dawson and the actress that plays Misty in this scene. I liked both of them, but this really did get way too over the top. I mean, a lot of what happens in the scene is not really justified, and I don't really know why they went the direction they did. But Misty says she'll take it from there. She's fine. She'll talk to her. They have rapport. Misty goes in, asks her about the attacker. Claire says she doesn't know and says she helped her and her partner. Luke helped her, and Misty asks about the shooter and what he said and what his connection was to Luke, and says it's critical that she finds Luke, and Claire asks why she's not outside looking for him. Misty asks why she won't help her find him, and Claire says that she wants a lawyer and an alibi, and says she's not scared of her and did nothing wrong, and Misty says he's out there hurting people, but she won't do anything to bring Luke in, because again, Misty's on to Luke at this point. She feels that Luke is a criminal. You know, she doesn't believe anything he says, and this Claire says she's out of there. Misty tells her to sit down, says people have been walking on her all day, no more lies or deception. She just wants someone to tell her the truth, because there hasn't been any truth to her all day, and you really do understand how frustrated she is. She's gonna tell her what happened and where she can find Luke. Claire tells her to back off, asks if just because she got jumped by a psycho, lost her gun, that she gets to talk to her like that, tells her to do her job. Misty asks what she knows about. Claire says she's either too weak to stay under pressure or too stupid to see that. Luke is innocent, and she probably couldn't find her ass with both hands. She then pushes Claire into a wall, and she literally starts choking her, and this made absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. I mean, there hasn't been any build-up between these two. Maybe if Claire and Misty had some sort of personal beef between each other, then I would understand this, but this just felt so phoned in just to give Misty this badass moment, and it really just came across as really dumb. I don't really know why they did this. Ridley comes in, breaks it up, apologizes for her, asks if she wants to press charges against her. Claire says yes and lets her know that Luke is innocent. She's after the wrong man, that's her statement, and she needs to write it down. So, very strange scene. I didn't really like the way that was done, and the ending, let me just say, really does not get better from here. So Luke goes to look for Diamondback. Mariah pays off Candace, who lets her know she didn't like Cottonmouth and she would have never slept with him. But now she's on record with that. She's not a whore, and Mariah agrees that she's a businesswoman, and that in her lap gives her a second to change her life and that of her family. Candace asks if Luke really did all of that. Mariah says she never really knows what anyone is truly capable of, tells her to go get some rest and be at the club when it opens. Shades asks if she thinks it worked. She says she's a good girl and she won't fold, and he asks what happens if she does, and says that they might have to kill her and everyone else in her building, which would be a shame since Duke Ellington and Count Basie used to live in that very building, and she'd hate to bring down the market value. So it seems that they might actually have to take Candace out, we see, which is interesting to see, and I'm looking forward to seeing where that's going to go. But she then goes home, she looks at a picture of Mama Maybell, insists that she's not like her. Again, not subtle at all. I really felt they could have not had that line of, I'm not like you. We could have just had a silent scene where they're looking at Mama Maybell and then seeing in her mind, I don't like you. We don't need her to actually say it. That just came across as really cheesy. So basically, she also, of course, knows she's the reason for Cottonmouth's death, but Diamondback then finds Luke on the street, and this scene was honestly terrible. I really did not like the way this scene was done. I mean, Mike Colter was good, but this scene in general just felt very, very convenient. Diamondback finds Luke on the street. He explains to him that they call this bullet the Judas. He barely survived the first blaze, and he won't survive the second. He asks him if he has any last words, and you know, obviously, he's not going to take Luke out, so this whole scene feels very pointless. Luke says he's sorry, he doesn't have to do this. He loved him like a brother. Diamondback says he is his brother. He then shoots him with another Judas bullet, knocking him into a garbage truck. I am officially not interested in whatever the hell is going on with this character, and that is the way the episode ends. Really confusing stuff overall. Let me just talk about where I think the show is going to go and my concerns for where we're going to go from here. So I really was liking the first half of this episode. I think the way they shut up the shooter, they said what was going on with Luke, with him in the shrapnel and everything, and how she couldn't get the bullet out. I thought all that was really compelling. But really, this is Diamondback. This guy is Diamondback is absurd. It really is. I mean, they built him up so well as this guy who was so powerful and who was an arms dealer. I thought all of that was so compelling. And they had so many opportunities to make this character compelling. I mean, there should be two reasons why he's going after Luke. Not because he's his half-brother. That is ridiculous. It makes no sense whatsoever. There hasn't been any sort of clues as to why he's his half-brother. There hasn't been any sort of allude to that. Just all of that in general makes no sense to me. I have no idea why he's his half-brother, and he's not supposed to be. I heard in the comics he's not. I don't know why they did that here. It doesn't add anything to the relationship. It doesn't make me feel more tension-filled, because I don't feel this guy's intimidating at all. This guy to me seems like a Saturday morning cartoon villain villain, just in a very mature show. That's all this seems like to me. He doesn't at all fit within this universe. Arrow, Flash, oh yeah, I could totally see him in that. Something where it's like a cheesy villain that they need, a throwaway villain for one episode. But the problem is this guy is going to be the villain for the rest of the season, and that very much concerns me, and I heard he really does not get better. Diamondback's motivation is very unclear to me. To me, it only seems like he wants to get rid of Luke because he has a bone to pick with him, and that he just wants to take him out. If it was the fact that he thought he was a false god, and the fact that he feels that Luke is nothing, and that he doesn't deserve all the publicity he's getting, then show that. That would be fine. But there's really no justification for why Diamondback is doing this. Does he want to be more powerful than Luke? Does he want, what Luke has? I mean, that just doesn't really make any sense to me. It feels very off, and I really don't know if they have enough time to really establish why Diamondback is like this. And I heard, like I said, it really does not get better from here. So I'm very disappointed with Diamondback. Now, all the Mariah and Shade stuff is great. I love where that's headed. I love the way the Mariah is able to cover up this death. I love that they're already thinking about taking Candace out, and I love the team between her and Shades. There's definitely something going on there, and I like the way that she seems to have the upper hand in pretty much everything. I mean, Alfre Woodard is just killing it in this show, and honestly, it really makes me feel like Diamondback was kind of pointless. They could have introduced him in Season 2. Then would be the time to introduce him. Mariah should be the villain for the rest of the show. I think she's a capable villain. I think she's exactly what the show needs, and if the entire episode would have just been Mariah and Shades planning stuff and not introducing Diamondback, I would have been perfectly fine with that, because Diamondback in general, we really don't need. For this season, I feel like they could have introduced him in the season finale. That would have made sense. The rest of the season should be dealing with the aftermath of Cottonmouth's death. Diamondback does not really fit into that narrative. He seems like he's only there to be a threat to Luke, and really is already ruining a lot of this show. I really am not a fan of that. Misty choking Claire was a very strange scene, but I do like the direction that Misty is heading. She wants answers. She's tired of people not telling her what's going on. She's tired of the lies. I totally understand what's going on there. I'm looking forward to seeing how that all goes, and I like the clashing between Misty and Claire. It just didn't feel very warranted, because we haven't seen any scenes from these two besides this episode. I mean, it just felt very, very rushed, and that was part of a lot of stuff, so it felt very rushed to me. It felt very much like the show is rushing where it's going. I know we have 5 episodes left, but I really feel that introducing Diamondback really has hurt the show a lot, and I'm honestly very worried for this show. I was loving where the show is going, but getting rid of Cottonmouth really does bring a significant downgrade to the show, unfortunately. I was hoping that they would do more, but unfortunately it doesn't seem that way. Either way, guys, let me know what you guys thought of this episode. I didn't hate it. I was just very, very let down by Diamondback. You hype up this character all season, and I have no idea how they could get this so wrong. I mean, they hyped him up like he was going to be this awesome badass, and instead, all we get is a petulant child, I think. I think he really is a child who is so savage and really has no build-up whatsoever and just wants to kill Luke. And honestly, if that's going to be the rest of the season, it's really going to be hard to take the show seriously. I want to take the show seriously. I want to love the show, but if they're going this direction where it's just going to be Diamondback trying to take out Luke all season, I'm going to hate where the rest of the show is going. Either way, guys, let me know what you guys thought of this episode. Loved your thoughts on it. Where do you think this is headed? Don't spoil what happens. I honestly don't really care. I heard not much else happens this season. But that's my review. Hope you guys enjoy it. We'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for tonight's episode of The Walking Dead, which I'm sure will be better than this. I am going to try to finish Luke Cage this week because I want to get to The Crown, and I want to get to that because I just want to get to a better show, and I want to finish this shit. But honestly, this might take me longer than Jessica Jones. Jessica Jones, I didn't hate, but I feel like Luke Cage is actually going to be much worse than Jessica Jones if this is the direction they're going. But that's my review. Hope you enjoyed. We'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for tonight's episode of The Walking Dead, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.